Welcome back to session two. Whether it's been a few days since you watched the last session or only a few minutes, I'm glad you're back. In the first session, we talked primarily about you, the pastor, as the key to your church's potential and future. Now I want to introduce the framework of church health. As we go through this framework in the next four sessions, I want to remind you that we are not trying to solve every problem. We're not even trying to chart a course for your future. This is just a checkup of the major areas of church health. Before we get into detail, I want you to know that what is not in this framework is important. There is no theology. There's no mention of worship styles. It doesn't talk about how you do things, or whether it's groups versus Sunday school. It's not about comparing you to other churches and their successes. Although vision is important, and the terms DNA and culture are very popular right now, we focus on principles and pathways of church health. Please don't misunderstand me. Your theology is important to your church, and it is critical that your church connect to God in worship. But your style is not the critical thing in your church's health. As we go through these, remember that we are looking for warning lights or gauges that may tell you where to look more closely at your church. Now, this first circle I call the four P's. It is place, people, programs, and personalities. And we have to look at two sides of each of these: how your current people view these and how they're seen by newcomers, your potential church members. This is similar to how comfortable you are in a family home, maybe your parents' home, compared to how a guest would feel in that same home. While you're accustomed to the furniture, the hallways, the restrooms, a guest is not. A family pet doesn't bother you, but it can really bother a guest. So it is in the church. Your church is set up for your church family, and we don't want to remove or change what is comfortable. We are not trying to be perfect or design a church for guests but not family. We just want to notice anything that would cause people to not come back. A few years ago, I went to a restaurant in town that I'd heard wonderful things about from many people. People had talked about the food, the atmosphere. This is a place you just have to try. When we arrived, we were greeted by a friendly host, and we were seated in a timely manner. It was supposed to be a homey backyard feel, and it was decorated as such, but there was a smell. Now, having cleaned and managed the cleaning of many facilities, I recognized it was a sour water smell. Now, it was unpleasant, but not unbearable. The rest of my experience was good, but not great. But I never returned. See, that was a no from me. Some people wouldn't even be bothered by that. I've actually been with a pastor when a roach crawled out on the table, and he killed it and kept eating. Again, that's a deal breaker for me. So as we talk about these things, know that the barriers for guests are a lot different than what the family is accustomed to. Now, the first of the four P's is place. This is your physical location, from the parking lot to the sanctuary, the restrooms, hallways, kids' areas. Think of it as going to stay at a hotel. What stands out as you arrive, as you're greeted, the process of entering and getting to your room, the parking before you, the hallways, and the room you are assigned all bring out feelings. It can be overwhelming to visit a new church, and you don't want anything to be uncomfortable for your guests. This also includes the temperature, the sound levels, and of course, the smells. I've worked at and been to churches where the sound level alone causes people to not return. Programs is the second P. Now, before you think, I can't compete with the bigger churches in this area, understand that people who come to your church are realistic. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for a place to belong, to connect. They don't expect a small church to be a mini version of a big church. They will overlook the size and the tech toys in your children's areas, but they won't overlook safety. They won't overlook cleanliness. When they leave, they want to know that their kids were with people who made them feel safe, who connected with them personally, and who taught them something about Jesus. Kids leave happy when they feel heard, when they don't have anxiety, and your church can do that. For your worship service, they aren't expecting a stage full of professional musicians and singers. They want organized, sincere leaders who lead them to worship God. Personalities is the third P. Each person that speaks to the congregation or personally to someone is important. But you, pastor, are the main personality. You set the tone. I've worked with pastors who want to tell it like it is, be themselves, and that is important. But you also have to have God's love showing through as you share that truth. You are being observed all the time, and how you engage with others, the stories you tell about your spouse, how approachable you are will be noticed. The fourth P is people. Your church is a family. It has its own traditions and insider information. I've entered some families and felt so accepted in those first few minutes. But I've been with many others where I only felt observed. I feel like I could never be welcome here. And this is what a new person will be looking for. Is this a place where I can see myself? As you answer the questions after this session, what are the flashing lights? What barriers may be in your church that would cause someone to not return? Let me ask you one more question. Would God allow guests to come to your church when they won't feel welcome, safe, and accepted? It goes against God's plan to have someone visit a church and not want to return. People view him more negatively when his people don't create a place for new people. That's what healthy churches do. Make it easy to come by removing any barriers in the 4 P's.